Howdy, and welcome back to PowerWash Simulator, where today we're going to be cleaning the fire helicopter. Denver Drill messages again saying, "Hey FA, we've got one heck of a dirty copter on our hands. Your buddy Cal got himself into a real spot of bother up on Mount Rushless. Poor guy was so delirious from the volcanic fumes, he thought the mayor's hellish feline was up there with him. He's fine now, but the copter looks like something dug up from the bowels of the earth." Which it nearly was. We've got TV crews arriving later, so if you can do what you do so well, it'd sure get us out of a jam. Thanks again, pal. No problem. Happy to take care of that for you. Alright, and as a bonus challenge, which we love bonus challenges. The bonus challenge today is called Live by the Blade, Die by the Blade. I don't remember, one of those two. And essentially it's just we gotta wash the helicopter blades first. I don't think the rotor mast counts, so we're gonna be careful to avoid doing that. We'll start with the top, just because it's more readily available, and then we'll work our way down. One topic that I do feel like I need to mention today. I was talking about the Dresden Files in the last episode and how I didn't think he was a misogynist because he was always so respectful of women. The very next book, the very next day, I was reading it, and he's going through a little bit of a depression, mind you. So he's a little frustrated, and he's got some issues going on with his girlfriend. So he's not had a lot of time. His ex-girlfriend ? I'm not sure. You be the judge. But either way, he was having problems with intimacy, we shall say. So it's hard to say if this is going to become a more prominent character trait or if it's just I was wrong. But he immediately was talking about, he ran into this fairy and he was like, "So fairy's got a great ass, so sue me. I noticed these things," or "She had a great ass," or something. No one tells you that fairies have a great ass or something like that. "So I noticed these things, sue me." And I was like, I just stood up for you. I just stood up for this book. And now he's over here talking about, blatantly, he compliments women's appearances throughout the novel. He runs into beautiful women and stuff like that, and he describes them because he's trying to put the image of your head what you're seeing. But then he said that as she was walking away, and that just totally I felt like I needed to mention that because it kind of did come back, and it felt like it came back to bite me since I was being so defensive of this guy, this character, and then that happened. Now, granted, I will give him a little bit of leeway. He does have some issues with his intimacy life, so maybe he's just, I don't know, he got used to certain things and they didn't come, so he's become a little more terrible, we should say. But yeah, I felt like I should clarify that just in case. However, in my defense also, the books I was talking about, this person was talking about the first book, and in that instance I still agree. The first three books I didn't see that much of an issue with the way that he was, but that fourth book really threw me for a loop. I was like, uh-oh, maybe I'm the one that's wrong. It was a little much. And I did too. As soon as I read that line when he said that, I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna have to talk about that in the very next video that I do. That's terrible. So I apologize ahead of time. I don't think anyone's seen that episode and then gotten to the fourth book. So that's been it. Hopefully no one started with the fourth book and was like, oh, that's the only one I could get my hands on, and I was going to read some Dresden Files because I was told it was so good, and Dresden's such a misogynist, and that makes FigsNStars a misogynist by extension for defending the man. No, I didn't know. I'd only read 3 books. I didn't know. So I am backpedaling a little bit on that one. My apologies. Still a good book. Still going to read it. Not going to lie. He's also gone a little stir crazy because at the time of the fourth book, he's kind of been isolating himself. He's been having some issues, we shall say. But man, by the fourth book, it really does open up, politically speaking. It really gets into like they did some of the world building in the other books. And I don't want to turn this into a whole nother video about Dresden, but I'm on it right now. And I'm reading the book and I'm excited to talk about it. But it does get political. It explores not political in the human sense, mind you, but political in terms of their world building. We get to meet the wizard court, and then there's some stuff with the fairies, and it's interesting. It's interesting that it gets to where it gets. There's a lot of world building going on, and I really appreciate that. It's pretty cool. pretty cool. I get that. I'm just not sure. I'm going to go ahead and grab that just in case. Alright, tops of the blades are done. We're going to go ahead and go down to the bottom. Get those cleaned. Nice and shiny. I'm also trying to think about, like, I'm already thinking ahead because I don't want to lose the momentum I have with reading. So I want to continue to read good books. I'm not sure where to go from the Dresden Files. I've obviously read I read Harry Potter as a kid. I read the Lemony Snicket series. I don't think those count. But I did enjoy both of those quite a bit. And now the Dresden Files I've been enjoying. And I'm thinking maybe Dune will be my next books. I don't know. It's Dune, then there's Stephen King. There's so many good authors out there that I've never read, but wouldn't mind getting the opportunity to read. I don't know that I'm set for horror because I'm kind of trying to like learn lucid dreaming and stuff of that nature, and I don't know that I want to feed my unconscious with visions of horror. You know what I mean? Seems like a bad deal. But I don't know. I've also seen some horrific like videos or not videos, but movies and whatnot. So maybe I'm just not fazed by that. Maybe I've got a pretty good grip on stuff like that. I don't know. Or maybe I just forget the horrific dreams I have. That could also be. I have had some bad dreams before, but I've also had dreams where I realize that I'm dreaming in the middle of a horrific dream and it turns into kind of like a good dream because I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna trap the monster in, I don't know, it's like a playground, like at a Chuck E. Cheese or something. I was like, oh, I'm dreaming. I'm just gonna trap him in the playground. Easy peasy. And I think that's interesting also because they have like horror games that take place in mascot themed restaurant playgrounds, and it's interesting to me that that's a place that I've had a nightmare before, and I don't understand why the playground. It's not like I spent a lot of time in the playgrounds. We did a couple of times as kids, but that wasn't my preference. My preference was to stay inside and play GameCube, but I guess there's just no horror in the GameCube era. I'm telling you, Doc, even if I'm goosed on CO2, I can tell the difference between a limping ginger tomcat and a pyroclastic flow. Dude, Calvin Miller, I take your word for it. That cat's all over the freaking place. I've seen him. Okay, the rotor blades I think are all done. Unless I missed that one. Yeah, it didn't pop the achievement though. Let me double check. Complete the fire helicopter blades first. I believe I did. Nothing else has been completed. Let me double check all the rotor blades. Start with this one. That one's clean. 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 Oh, maybe these tail rotor blades. Yep, that would have got me. That would have got me. I had a sudden spark of insight there. I remember that helicopters actually have two sets of blades. Alright, well, that's not too tough. Already 20% of the way done. It's kind of interesting to me that, like, I don't know if it probably won't be 25, but at least 20%, a fifth of it was helicopter blades. Is kind of amusing. I also have the extension going, so I may not have to get up on the ladder to get this bottom one. Yeah, so I'm thinking Dune because that seems like an interesting political thing. I could always go back to Game of Thrones, even though I didn't finish. I tried picking it up twice. So I've learned that even though I've picked it up a second time, I bought the Game of Thrones on I don't remember if it was the Apple. I just finished that. I don't know why I'm worried about it, but picked it up on the Apple bookstore so I could read it at work without carrying a book to work, and I found out that I just struggle reading digitally. I don't get it. I don't understand why that is. I would think because I spend so much time on the internet and on my phone anyway that reading would be fine, but it tires my eyes out. And I get super bored. And I know it's not what I'm reading because if I read it on the phone I get bored, but if I read it in a book I don't. So that's just a curious little thing. I don't know how else to describe it. It's just very strange. But yeah, so I don't know that the other thing I was reading was Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I finished the first book on that. Very entertaining series if you like dry British humor. Very funny. Very funny. But I did have trouble picking up the second book after I finished the first. And I've got it in like an omnibus situation where it's got all the books in one book, so it's like a big thick book. I read the first book and I have yet to start this. Oh, I think I started the second book and I had that issue. To be fair, I also had that issue with Dresden, even though they bought, okay, the achievement popped. It sort of threw me off because I heard a noise. But it happened with the Dresden Files too, so I think I just got to push through and read, because I read the first Dresden Files book and I was like, okay, that was great, and then it came time to start the second one and I was like, I don't know. I think I mentioned that before. It's kind of like an I don't believe they can do it again sort of deal. It happened with, I said Breaking Bad, I believe, yeah. When I watched Breaking Bad, I was like, oh man, that show was phenomenal. And then it came time for Better Call Saul came out. And I was like, I don't know. Can he do it again? Am I going to enjoy that as much as the first one? I don't know what that is about me. I don't know why I'm like that. But it's like if they strike gold once, I don't trust them to strike gold again. And I don't know what that's about. I don't know what kind of psychological malady I'm afflicted with, where that's my line of thinking, but it does occur. I just feel like I'm not going to enjoy the second one as much as I enjoyed the first one. I wish that happened with food, because then I would cut back on, oh man, I'm not going to enjoy the 40th slice of pizza as much as I enjoyed the first one, but by golly, I'll sit there and eat all 40 slices, you feel me? That's unfortunate. But with books, it doesn't make any sense to be that way, I think, with content. So I'm unfortunately gifted in being able to at least attempt the 40th pizza slice, whereas with books I'm like, I'm good with the one that I read out of the full series. I don't know why I'm like that, but I think that's part of the problem. I think I should give the second Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy book a chance. Which, if you didn't know, there are a couple of those. I don't know how like prevalent it is with people these days, but it's like a comedic science fiction book where the world ends, essentially. The world has to end. They're making space for a new interstate, a galactic interstate, essentially. And the guy who writes the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy just happens to live on the Earth. And he saves this one guy who was his friend throughout the his entire stay, more or less. Not the entire stay, but for a long time they were friends. And there's like no real reason to save him other than he just kind of liked him. So it's kind of funny how that all works out. I don't know why I'm trying so hard to get that first one, because I'm pretty sure all of this is the rotor mass. I think it's because I'm talking and I'm half distracted, but that's beside the point. Or maybe that is the point. I'm not sure. You be the judge. Anyway, so it has to do with what happens after he's rescued from the Earth getting saved. And that's the first one. It's called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. The second one is called The Restaurant at the End of the Universe. The third one, I don't remember if there's 3 or 4, but one of them's called So Long and Thanks for All the Fish. And that has to do with, it's kind of absurdist, but that has to do with dolphins being, like, they left the planet, and what they said before they left was so long and thanks for all the fish. But yeah, there's like a lot of crazy stuff that goes on in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, a lot of funny things. If you're into comedy, like I said, dry comedy, that's a good book. It's a good book series. That's a good, relaxing book. And it's funny that it's told from like the perspective of someone. It's not first person perspective. It's obviously, I think, from the perspective of the author, but he pretends to know all of these other things about the universe that humans don't, and he describes them, and he'll say like, this book describes this as this, but the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy describes it as, or tells you this, and it's like it's goofier. It's like how to get drunk or something off of this stuff, how to use it, how to turn it into alcohol or some kind of drink, some kind of drinking game or whatever. I don't remember, but just absurd things like that. It'll describe things vaguely in like the encyclopedia more or less, but the Hitchhiker's Guide's going to tell you all the nitty gritty little details that make it truly great. So obviously you want to listen to, or you obviously want to buy the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy so you can get all of those details, that sort of thing. That's why the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is the best book in the universe. Which is also kind of funny because it's like a situation where the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy isn't a book within the book titled The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's very meta in that way. All in all, it's very enjoyable. Highly recommend it. So yeah, I could go back to that. I'm thinking about Dune because I've heard good things about it, and it seems like it would be up my alley. I know it's a series. Like I said, Stephen King I know is pretty prolific. Contemporary writer. Heard Dean Koontz is pretty good. Which is funny to me because I didn't realize that Dean Koontz was a horror author. Kind of like Stephen King. I didn't know that people compared the two of them. Like who has more books? I was looking up like authors that had a lot of books because I was like 18 is a lot of books. Turns out people write a lot of books. People can write books like no other. And here I'm thinking it takes years because I'm thinking like obviously Game of Thrones, George R.R. Martin, and Jim Butcher, the Dresden guy. They both had like multiple years between their books. So in my mind, it's like, oh my God, it takes so long to write a book. And then there are people who just crank books out like crazy, like 4 to 5 books a year, maybe more. And that surprised me. Dean Koontz is one such person, I think. Well, not necessarily, but I don't remember. I don't remember where I heard the name Dean Koontz, but I was looking for authors that wrote a lot of books essentially. And Dean Koontz was one of the most prolific writers, I think, maybe is what I wrote. I don't remember. Stephen King, I think. I think originally I was going to look up the difference between Dean Koontz and Tom Clancy because I thought they were the same genre. I know nothing about Dean Koontz. That's why it's so amusing to me that people were like, oh no, actually he's a horror novelist. And that's what it was. I think I was starting to search who wrote more books, Dean Koontz or Tom Clancy. But before I could type up Tom Clancy, it auto-filled it in with Stephen King. And so that's how I learned that he's actually a horror novelist who's written quite a few books. I heard that his books like have brighter endings, maybe brighter implications than Stephen King. Stephen King kind of haunts you, and Dean Koontz is kind of like I don't know. I wouldn't know without actually reading them. So I guess I should probably hold off on any kind of commentary. But yeah, so I'm thinking. There was another one. I had a friend in high school that gave me the first book of a series called Her Majesty's Dragon, and I never got around to reading that. But interestingly, on Jim Butcher's website, he said that he enjoyed that author. So, and like the picture of that book was one of the first ones on there. So that was interesting. Maybe I should give them a shot. I also know that Jim Butcher's son is apparently an author, and he says that he's like the way he put it was like when he was teaching his son to write, when he wasn't teaching him to write, he was reading some other author that was really good. And that person, he kind of learned from like podcasts and videos of that author speaking and teaching him about writing. I hear that guy's like more of a marketable guy, so it's like a combination between Jim Butcher and him. I don't know if what I haven't discovered yet is whether I like Jim Butcher as an author or whether I like whether I just like the Dresden Files. I know he's got a couple of other series out there, but I haven't read those yet. He did have like at the back of his books, he's got like chapters to his other novel that I guess he's trying to get people to go for. I don't remember what it's called now, because I'm kind of tunnel visioning this Dresden Files situation, but I think it's supposed to be like a sci-fi fantasy sort of thing, which is what I believe he wanted to get into at first, and then he kind of, like I said, he was trying to prove his English teacher wrong. I don't know if the story's true or not, but he said he came up with the concept of Harry Dresden to try and prove his English teacher wrong for whatever reason. He was trying to mishmash all these different genres together, and he came up with the idea of like a wizard crime investigator sort of deal, and it ended up being like interesting, and his teacher was like, yeah, you could publish this, and so he ended up publishing it, which is cool. But like I said, I'm not sure how the genre is going to fall. I kind of read that one chapter halfway, and then I was like, I think I'm just going to go on to the next book. I don't know that I want to really worry about this first chapter situation, and it's kind of weird. It was like some girl trying to get some guy to do something for her that I never really paid attention to what it was, but she was like, her body molded against him, and I'm like, it's a little much. And they do have some romance and or horrific elements that involve sensuality, because you got vampires, right? you've got lust vampires, and you've got the kind of vampires that drink your blood, and they like have some messed up thing with their spit that puts you in a trance essentially when they kiss you. So they do have some romantic moments in the book, and I'm not like completely against that ever being in a book, but I don't know what's going on with those characters or why they're pushing up against each other, and I'm not sure I want to find out. You know what I mean? Like Dresden, I'm invested in. I'm like, okay, Dresden's getting accosted by vampires right now. That'll be over in a minute, versus immediately being subjected to some intimate romance scene between whoever the heck those two people are that I don't even know. Feels kind of intrusive. Maybe people are into that. I don't know, but that's why I'm kind of like, I could give those books a series, but I'm not sure I want to. I think it's called Windless? Like LASS, Windlass. I don't know if it sounds like a sword. Aeronauts Windlass, I think is what it's, either the title of the book or the title of the series. Could be interesting. I know it's supposed to be, I think that one's supposed to be steampunk, and then he's actually got like a traditional fantasy that he's been writing, or I don't know if it's got one book or how many books is in the series, but I know he's been trying to expand beyond Dresden, in addition to Dresden. So that's how I know some people just crank books out, man. They just go for it. But those are some other avenues I might, like if I'm really just, if I read a lot of, if I'm done with Dresden and I'm like, I kind of want to see what these other things are about, we'll see. But Dune definitely sparks my interest because I've heard a lot of good things about that. So that's kind of where I'm leaning towards right now. And then of course Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and Game of Thrones are also kind of options because I've already got my foot in the door with them, so I might finish those up. A lot of different genres out there, and I think I was talking about that in the Playground episode. There are just so many good ideas. Humanity comes up with so many creative things. And I get that, like, sometimes, oh, that's just like a repetition of this other idea. But yeah, I mean, yes, but no also. It's kind of like, you can say all these different stories are just iterations of Star Wars, like Harry Potter. Someone broke it down. It was like, narratively, it's essentially Star Wars. Like, yes, but does that take away from Harry Potter individually? I don't think so. I think Harry Potter on its own is also very interesting, even when compared to Star Wars, because it's like a different skin, and people pay for different skins on video games all the time. So, like, really, what's the difference? Sure, it's the same thing, but you get enjoyment from it in a different wrapper, or maybe the different wrapper makes it more relatable in some way, or, you know, all kinds of different reasons to let it breathe on its own. But yeah, this is kind of where my mind's at right now. I'm kind of thinking about what I want to read next. I'm kind of wanting to read right now, to be honest with you. Started my weekend and I'm like, man, I could tear through so many books. I remembered I got things I got to do. I got like several early ends next week, which kind of put a damper on my ability to record and edit. So that's kind of a little bit of a stressful situation. I want to make sure, and like I want to see if I can find a game to supplement PowerWash Simulator, because PowerWash Simulator is fun, but it's not all I want to do. And I was kind of looking at escape room simulator, but then I'm not sure how long those levels are. I think they're about half an hour, and that would be good because consistently the half an hour is kind of long for me to edit. One thing's for sure, letting the chief know my predicament saved my smoky bacon. I owe you one. What was I saying? I got distracted. The early ends. Oh yeah, 30 minutes for the... That's kind of long form. Not as long as like the longer levels in PowerWash Simulator though. Just kind of a happy medium. So I feel like I could get the relaxing chatter, just whatever's on my mind sort of chatter going, but also not stress myself out with how long it's taking to edit. Because if I'm watching the full video back, you think a 2-hour episode, right? Well, now I gotta watch that. I gotta record the 2-hour episode. That's 2 hours. I gotta edit the 2-hour episode. That's at least 2 more hours plus, depending on how much I gotta stop the video. Like, usually not much more time than the than the initial investment, but that's still 4 hours. And then I got to consider, like, I got to take time to get ready for work. I got to get dressed. I got to go to work. I got to do all these things. And it's just a little much. 4 hours is about how much time I have when I get home to do things I'd like to do before going to bed and waking up and getting ready again. So it can be a little challenging. The weekend's really where I get a lot of stuff done, but I also don't want to spend all of my weekend being trapped in PowerWash Simulator. I do enjoy other things. It is relaxing, it is fun, but trying to develop this channel can be a bit of a challenge with my current time commitments. Because then you get a 4-hour overtime and you pretty much got to go almost to bed as soon as you get home, or sacrifice your sleep to stay up and record another episode or edit another episode of PowerWash Simulator. So I would like to get a little bit ahead. I would like to find a substitute that's not quite as arduous to edit. That way I can sort of switch between them, keep it lively, get some variety of content going with the same overall theme of just chilling and having a good time. I don't know that I necessarily want to go for cozy channel. I don't think that's the vibe necessarily. Like, I want to be comfortable for sure. Pajama vibes is fine. But I don't know that it's pajama vibes in terms of like PowerWash Simulator. Or cozy vibes like, I don't know, we're about ready to go to bed or something. Pajamas is something I wear all day if I can help it. So pajama vibes is just like stress-free maybe. Not necessarily cozy, not necessarily like games you're going to want a mug of hot cocoa for. Though that's certainly welcome, maybe you just enjoy hot cocoa. But I'm not looking for cutesy necessarily. We can enjoy some cozy games, don't get me wrong, but I don't want that to be the focus of the channel because I feel like I would get bored. As much as I like, you listen to the types of fiction I'm trying to read, and I wouldn't say those are cozy. So it's kind of like it's friendly, chatty cozy, not stars and sparkles cozy. Like one of the recommendations I got was, oh, well, maybe you could play A Little to the Left, and maybe I will, but also that's kind of like stereotypical cozy gamer vibe. I'm not, like I said, I'm not sure that's what I want to go for. More like my idea, like when I originally came up with it, was like, I want to do Wanderers, which are like puzzle games. I want to attract Wanderers, people who are imaginative, and then Wanderers, because I like the concept of the Wanderers and Wanderers. And the Wanderers would be people who like to go, like adventure, they like to go out and maybe play some games that are adventurous, not necessarily like high action adventure, but explorative, I would say, like out in nature. Like having some, like exploring new worlds together and stuff. Not necessarily high action, like I said, but that's the kind of gist I was going for. Wanderers and Wanderers, stuff like exploration and thought-provoking stuff. That's kind of the two that I would be going with. That's why, kind of like Islands of Insight. The difficult thing with that, though, is their levels can take quite a while, and their puzzles can be quite challenging at times. So that might end up being a longer commitment depending on how I structure the videos. Like if I'm just going to go for one of their big areas, I would have to choose between stretching that down to, or stretching each area into several episodes, or like committing to longer episodes. So that's a little, I haven't decided what I want to do with that yet. But that kind of captures both, because it's got like the puzzle theme for Wanderers, but it's also got like beautiful graphics. Graphically, the level designs, they're very like magical and wondrous, I would say. It's kind of like I don't know, there's just a lot of nature, there's a lot of floating islands, that sort of thing. It's just a great environment to just be in and explore. It's very nice. I'm kind of sad at the direction that thing went, because conceptually, the thing with Islands of Insight is that it was going to be an MMO, but for puzzle games, and that was really cool. They had like a little skill tree. It wasn't too much. I think the issue that they ran into though was the multiplayer aspect was causing it to lag even for puzzles, which isn't ideal in a puzzle game. You kind of don't want your progress in the puzzle to be hampered by an online connection, and it was required that it be online, so that was a little bit of a hang up. And I feel like they fixed that. They said, okay, it's offline now, you can play it offline, and then for some reason they had to take it completely offline, and that kind of defeats the purpose of a lot of the MMO elements, but that's also fine. It's a very imaginative game. I think a lot of people were complaining that half of the things weren't puzzles, but really speaking, like, if you got to expand your idea of what a puzzle is, because I would say that even horror games can be somewhat like puzzles. And my mind goes to this situation I had when I first played Dead Space. I was playing on the hardest difficulty, and I got to this part where I was about to enter a boss fight, and it was I don't know that it was a boss fight proper so much as it was like it was introducing a new enemy, and it became very hectic very quickly. And the enemy was the one that, I don't remember what it's called, but it's like a flying enemy that latches onto dead bodies and turns them into enemies, and then like flies off while you're dealing with that enemy to make even more enemies. And the problem was I was down to like my last clip, right? So I was like figuring out how I could maximize the impact I had on this creature before it got to me. And I remember that being a bit like a puzzle, like, okay, well, first I need to go do this, and then I need to go do that. There was another good thing that came out of it. You remember we moved to Floraine's old place? Yeah. What about it? You gonna fill me in, brother? Well, guess who's a copter pilot now? Floraine? Neat. So you ran into her again, huh? Anyway, it's rude to text on a date, so I better go. Oh, that's nice. You're back with Floraine. Cool. Happy for you, Mr. Miller, the volcanologist. Now I forgot what I was talking about. Oh, I don't think it's going to come back to me either. I think I'm tapped out. I don't remember what was going on. I was so happy for Mr. Miller that I forgot. I plumb forgot. I remember we were talking about Islands of Insight, but I don't remember if I was still talking about that or what the situation was. So I guess we'll just move on, unfortunately. I feel like that's annoying to people who are like listening to me talk. I feel like sometimes I get a good gate going. Like, oh man, he's really talking and it's somewhat interesting, and then I just forget. I just lose my train of thought. And like there are times where I'm like, oh, I could probably regain it if I just thought hard enough. I don't think this is one of those. Hold on. I don't think it's one of those situations, unfortunately. Like sometimes I grasp for it and I can feel my mental fingers kind of like grazing the idea of what I was talking about. I'm like, oh, it's there. I just got to stretch a little bit and then I'll have it. And then there are situations like this where it's like, I can't even begin to recall a fraction of what I was talking about. Vaguely, I remember talking about Islands of Insight. And I remember we were talking about how wonderful it was. It was an MMO, single player. But I can't, I'm trying to trace the trail of thought back to the idea and it's gone. It's just, there's nothing to grab. It's just in the void of my brain. But one branch we could go, if we wanted to continue this thread of thought based on what I just remembered, was so I was kind of disappointed that it went single player only, because seeing other people, even though they couldn't like assist you with the puzzles, it was neat seeing them fly around and be on their journey, and you had like a whole chat system where you could talk to other people and emote to them. That was cool. I'm kind of sad that's gone. And then I was thinking about like other games that had disappointing ends to their services or how they looked or whatever. And I remember back when I played competitive games, not competitively, I stink at video games. So back when I played competitive games, before I realized that like I don't have the skill to play them without getting super angry. Either that or the commitment to playing them without getting super angry. There was a game that came out for DC, It was called Infinite Crisis. And man, I loved Infinite Crisis. It was the first MOBA that actually clicked with me. I played the Flash. I feel like I played the Flash well. And the concept of it was the characters, the champions, the MOBA, the heroes that you play, whatever you want to call them. They would be like Batman, Superman, your typical DC heroes. But additionally, they would have up to like 3 total heroes, but they would come from different universes. Like the Batman you probably think of when I say Batman would probably be Batman Prime, which is the Prime Universe's Batman. It's the OG Batman. He played kind of like a bruiser. But then they would also have Batman from 2 other universes. So you would have Batman Prime, and then you would have Nightmare Batman, which came from the Nightmare universe, and he kind of played like an assassin. He was vampiric. He did lifesteal. And then you had Gaslight Batman, who was more like a marksman, an AD carry, however you'd like to refer to it. And he had like these little sonic guns, and he would have skill shots and things of that nature. And that was interesting. I don't remember if Flash had any alternatives, but I remember they had like, what was Joker? Joker had a Gaslight. He had Gaslight Joker, and he was like this big tanky butcher. And then you had Joker Prime, and I feel like there was another Joker. I don't think it was Nightmare Joker. No, it was, okay, I remember now. The Joker was like a head in a jar, and he rode like this big guy on a unicycle. I don't think that was Nightmare, but wasn't Gaslight. Maybe Atomic? Atomic was another universe they had. They had Mecha, which was like Gundams essentially. So they had Mecha Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman Prime, and then they had Atomic Wonder Woman, and she had like a chainsaw and a stick. She was kind of like a bruisery, assassin-y type character. So there was a lot of interesting ideas that were going on with it. But the problem with that game was they were really pushing to get into the MLG scene, because that was when League of Legends was taking off. Like super hardcore, everyone wanted to watch Worlds or whatever the equivalent is. So they were trying to like establish teams, they were trying to get these tournaments going. And what they weren't doing was fixing their network issues. They weren't solving the problem with being able to get their games to not lag out all the time. And that was kind of unfortunate. I'll be right back. But yeah, they were they were focusing on getting the MLG situation sorted out, and they just didn't pay attention to their online stuff. And then their player base would fall off, because like they would all say, well, this is a fun game and all, but I think I'll come back. Once they sort out all the bugs. And then enough of them did that, they were like, oh, well, people aren't interested in our game anymore, so I guess we're gonna have to shut the servers down. And I remember that being very disappointing, because that was the MOBA that clicked. League of Legends couldn't really grasp it. But man, I did love me some Infinite Crisis. I got pretty good at several characters in that game. Green Lantern, of course, is my favorite superhero. Conceptually. I don't see how he's not the most overpowered character in the DC universe, because you think his power is based on willpower, right? Well, if I had a power that was based on willpower, I feel like suddenly my willpower would spike. Suddenly I would have the most will I've ever had in my life, because I'm like, who's going to stop me? I'm essentially invincible. I'm essentially like all powerful, as long as my willpower falls into place. And knowing that I have the power to access that willpower, it like reinforces my willpower. It's like a feedback loop, I would think. That's how I imagine it would work for me personally. But I don't know. Maybe I'm misunderstanding the concept of willpower, but that, in my mind it would be a feedback loop, and I would be overpowered as hell. But anyway, I like the concept of him and using his imagination and constructs and stuff with his ring. I think that's cool. And likewise, he was very cool in combat. His auto attacks were like fists, ranged fists. He would throw fists out, and then his ultimate, he would drop like a fighter jet into like an area. And that was all well and good. That reminds me of my college roommate. I was trying to teach him how to play, because he liked competitive games. And I was like, oh, you should try Infinite Crisis. He wasn't a big MOBA player, so he was more of a Call of Duty player. But he went along with Infinite Crisis, and we decided to give it a shot. he was like, oh, I dropped it. And it was a team fight, and he was so excited because he dropped the airplane. He's like, I dropped it. But then, like, I don't know if I killed him or if it was a team fight and everyone else killed him, but the plane landed after everyone on the enemy team died, and he was like, oh, I dropped it. I just have good memories of that game. Oh, man. It's funny what we remember. Funny how things are connected. Then the other game, I think, Dawngate I enjoyed. I think that was mostly because I had fond memories of it. I didn't really understand how the builds worked necessarily, but I had fond memories of that. I thought it was very artistically done. I thought there were some good concepts in it. I think there was something about how factions work together, but I'm not sure. I remember correctly. Funny number. But I digress. It was a very good experience until the EA shut that down. Unfortunate. Another strike against EA. Man, I just confused Ubisoft and EA because I was gonna go on my tirade about Assassin's Creed again, but I think Assassin's Creed is Ubisoft and not EA. Oh, WildStar was another game I thought was very interesting. I remember when it first came out and I saw that like everything, because that's the one thing that keeps me out of like MOBAs is they're not fluid enough. They're not quite turn-based, but they're also not quite I don't know if real-time is the word. Maybe real-time's not the word, but they're not quite action-based necessarily. You kind of stand in one spot and push numbers and cast your spells. WildStar had like if you were disarmed, your weapon would actually fall off of you and you'd have to go pick it up and you could cancel your disarm. And if you were blinded, there was like some way to get out of that quicker. They had ways to counter what you were experiencing, and there were different ways, like the way that it was experienced was not a direct cancellation. Like if you were blind, it wasn't that you couldn't land hits, is that you physically couldn't see. I think there were ways around that. But I remember seeing that, like AoEs, you could dodge every ability. It was a very skillful MMO, I would say, comparatively. Versus MMOs where you kind of get hit, you kite, but you still get hit. I don't know how to describe it. I'm not a big MMO guy, but I remember trying to get into it a couple of times. And I always thought that I would be a good healer, but healing was just kind of bland. And there were two games that were different, and that was WildStar, obviously, because of the way that it played. It sought to make the game more action-oriented. Very creative, very nice. They had different things as well, like there were different types, like depending on the type of player you were. This was a neat concept to me because I like exploring. I liked jumping puzzles, so I liked some of the stuff that came with Guild Wars because I thought that was interesting, like parkour, even when it was challenging and it made me angry. But they had stuff like that. Like if you were a person that liked exploring the full map, they had the Explorer. It was like, it wasn't a class necessarily. It was more like what your calling was or whatever your player type. And you would get bonuses for fully exploring areas and collecting, I don't think it was treasures, but notes, lore, stuff like that. And the other one I liked was the Scientist, where you got like this little floating dude, and he would tell you about you would research things, you would fight things to collect data on them, and you would get lore for that as well. And they had different stuff as well, like people who just like to fight things, they had one for that guy. I don't remember what the fourth one was, but generally speaking, that's kind of how it worked. They had a bunch of they had stuff like that, and you could double class. I think there were 6 maybe. And mine were, I wanted to be the Scientist and I wanted to be the Explorer. Those were my two. So now you can see why Wanderer and Wanderer is kind of the concept here. Those are the things I enjoy. Exploration and puzzling. So like Indiana Jones vibes, you know what I mean? It's kind of a combination of those. And the other MMO that kind of shook things up for me was a game called Secret World. I don't know if that's still out or not. My friends stopped playing it, so naturally I stopped playing it. But that was a good game. It was or it is, or it was, or whatever. I haven't kept up with it. it's like a Lovecraftian MMO, secret societies and that sort of thing. And it had puzzles where it had an internet browser inside of the game itself, where you could cross-reference things and look up websites that you found in world, and you kind of like sussed out information, whatever. You would look up information, find out like Morse code and biblical verses that would hint at the solution to the puzzle, and there would be like environmental puzzles. There was all sorts of cool stuff going on with Secret World that I really enjoyed. And then the healing aspect, it wasn't quite as action oriented, but the healing stuff made me feel like I was contributing, because if I remember correctly, you essentially built your class based on the type of weapons you had. I don't think it was a skill tree so much, but I don't remember all the details, but I think it was based on the weapons you chose. And I chose to go, the healer routes were like blood magic and claws. Claws were sort of like a heal over time, and then the blood magic obviously was more of the traditional healing. I would say you shield and you infuse with blood, so it was like a support thing. And I remember that was very fun for me. I wasn't just pushing buttons necessarily. And it wasn't quite just like, oh, I raised my arm and they're healed whatever amount. It was, you got to visually see the heal, and I think there's like some kind of siphon situation where you would do an AoE siphon of all the enemies and it would heal you and the people around you, and you could just move around, and that was very fun for me. Plus it was set in Lovecraft, which is, everybody loves a little cosmic horror now and then, you know what I mean? Everybody, especially the people that went through it, those are the people who enjoy it the most. But yeah, that was super cool. I remember being into that. What in the world? There, please, thank you. Kind of got sidetracked. I don't even remember where that branch came from. I think it was... I don't even remember where they came from. I remember transitioning. I think I was complaining about... I don't know. I can't even remember. My train of thought goes all over the place when I'm not trying to concentrate on where it's going. But yeah, that's where the Wonders and Wanderers come from. Because my two favorite things to do in games are fully explore the map, much to the dismay of the people who are watching, because I'll play... It's tougher in horror games because I want to explore the map, but I also don't want to get jump scared, because I don't like getting jump scared. That's my least favorite thing. But I also want to collect all the items and experience all that the game has to offer. So I kind of look all over the place and I collect everything. I check for secret walls and stuff like that. I gotta like 100% complete an area before moving on, or I just go crazy with confusion. And when I play D&D, so I have this concept for a character that I'd like to play in D&D, but I don't think it's doable, but it seems like it would be very fun to sort of do. And the idea is that I wanted to play, like, I don't know if it's a lore master or what the correct terminology is, but someone who's... That's a problem too, because I'm not super well versed in the lore, so I don't know how I would be able to successfully roleplay this thing unless the DM really helped me out. And I was like, oh, can I use my knowledge to solve this? And he'd say, like, roll a wisdom check or whatever, and then I would consult my wisdom, and he'd say, you remember this and that? Okay, so maybe that could work out. But the idea is that my character is very knowledge heavy and not so much gifted in combat traditionally. He's very smart and clever, so that's the sort of thing I'd like to go with. And he doesn't learn high level slots, but he figures out how to use low level spells creatively enough that they benefit him and his teammates in these situations. I think that would be an interesting character to play. The problem is I don't think he would be good for like a traditional party. The other thing is, like, I can never decide between wizards and rogues, because like I said, I'm an explorer, so obviously I want to be able to disarm traps and open up locked doors and chests and stuff like that, because obviously my goal is to fully... I don't like being locked out of content, essentially. I feel like wizard is another thing, someone with a lot of magical knowledge. So that's why I kind of wanted to go with like a... I kind of want to figure out how to figure out. I kind of want to figure out how to go about creating a character that can get anywhere and isn't necessarily useful in combat, or as useful as he could be. just very knowledgeable, very resourceful and creative. That's the kind of dude that I would like to play. I think that would be neat. And I remember I was trying, like, my friend wanted to do an online campaign, and he was like, I described to him this character, and he was like, I don't think that's a good idea. You're gonna need to at least learn magic missile or something. And I'm like, oh, come on, can't I just learn prestidigitation or move earth or whatever and find something like a loose rock or something and make it fall on somebody's head, stuff like that. Essentially what I was talking about with the Dresden First book and how he solves his problems. Sometimes he uses big flashy magic, but sometimes he doesn't have that available to him, so he has to figure out how to make do with his less flashy magic. That sort of stuff just really interests me, because then it becomes more like a puzzle. I can look into my environment and figure out how to use the environment with my limited resources to do some cool stuff. But I feel like there's not a good place for that, or maybe it has to do with like the competence of the DM. You know, like DMs starting out may not know how to handle that. They just want to run a traditional campaign, but maybe someone out there can create a campaign specifically with those mechanics emphasized versus combat, which is what people normally want. How much damage can they do? How much? But that also, I guess, requires more on the DM as far as lore goes, because in order to make a campaign like that, you would need for the lore that I know to be relevant to the problems at hand, which means it would be a mess, essentially. But I still think that would be cool. It would be cool. Or maybe if there were like a team, maybe if it were like a bigger team, like a bigger party, like you got your, I don't know how many people are normally in a party, and I'm just like the fifth, and I'm just there to help out. I'm only there sometimes, like one day out of 4 or something. I don't know how it would work out, but that's the kind of character that I'm interested in playing versus the kind of character you got. Or the kind of characters I've been exposed to, I should say. Maybe I'm not creative enough to find a solution to the problem. Maybe I don't know enough about D&D that's perfectly applicable. I've only played it a handful of times. But I digress. I don't even know where that came from. We were talking about Wonders and Wanderers, I think. But yeah, that's the general idea behind the channel. It's not necessarily cozy. It's more like a comfortable adventure, I would say. It's kind of what I want to shoot for. Like PowerWash Simulator is not really adventurous necessarily, but it is comfortable. It is relaxing to do. It's relaxing to enjoy. It's very enjoyable in a way. So I don't know if it's more Wanderer or Wanderer, but I guess it's just like just something. It gets me going. It gets my mind kind of wandering. So I start looking for topics to talk about. It frees my brain up to do other things. Like, yes, I'm playing PowerWash Simulator, but obviously the focus isn't necessarily PowerWash Simulator. It's more like a channel for my focus, so I could do other things while I'm playing. It's also kind of relaxing to watch and witness and experience something gradually become cleaner. It's like a visual progress bar, essentially. I don't know, there's just something to it. So cozy can be an aspect, but it's not going to be the sole aspect. So we'll say this is probably closer to cozy than necessarily sort of stuff I'm looking forward to doing. Another game I'd like to play, but I don't think it's very cozy, would be Outward. I think I'll save that for when I have more time and resources to put into video creation. I might put that on my other channel too. I don't know that it matches. It'd be more of a wanderer with an A, because it's very adventurous. And the concept behind that game, I didn't get very far into it. It's a very hard game. It's a very hard game, so it can be very challenging to play. But the concept of it is, you're essentially a nobody in a fantasy world, and you can build yourself up to an extent, but you're by no means a god. You know what I mean? I would say it's kind of harder than even Dark Souls, because you can inadvertently wander into something you have no business being into, and that happens in Dark Souls, sure. But Dark Souls is kind of well known. And the game starts. You're going to be evicted from the town for whatever reason, I don't remember. But I don't know if maybe you didn't pay rent or something, but they're about to kick you out of your house and banish you from the town and all this other stuff. And you have to figure out how to make enough money in so many in-game days and return to them. And that is a challenge in and of itself. It's very hard to do that. Nothing easy about it. And if you don't make it, they kick you out and you continue the story from outside of the house, or you succeed and you get your house, and that's all fine and good. But I remember there's like I don't know what my train of thought is here, but it's just very, very challenging. There's a lot of exploration to it, and I remember, like, if you want to be a mage, you have to ascend this mountain. And then at the top of the mountain, you have to sacrifice like half of your health bar or something to get a mana bar. So there's like sacrifices that come with how you class yourself, and the way you class yourself has in-game effects, and I don't remember how the mana bar works, but I remember it being very challenging and very interesting, and progress was you felt good because like it was very difficult. The other thing I remember is like when you die, you wake up somewhere else. You don't wake up where you died, you wake up somewhere else. And sometimes where you wake up is worse. Sometimes you're dragged off to some pit. You have to fight your way out with limited resources because they took the stuff you had, or you woke up in some kind of creature's pit. That's definitely not definitely not ideal, we should say. Yeah, they got all kinds of stuff. And that kind of more scratches the wanderer itch, but I worry wanderer itch with an A. Keep. It's hard to enunciate the difference between those two words, I found. I don't need to be up here anymore? Great. You can be here. But that's the kind of world that I would like to explore as a wanderer. Another game I was thinking about for wanderer would be like Astroneer, and that leans more into cozy territory. As long as you don't do a bunch of stressful stuff, you can take your time and do things safely and not really encounter a whole lot of trouble. But it's also very freeform and survival oriented, so I could kind of set the pace for how I wanted episodes to go and think about what I wanted to accomplish in the next episode while doing other things. It's not as hard-nosed as PowerWash Simulator, where it's like I'm gonna do the levels that I've unlocked. It's more freeform, and that has its benefits as well, because like I said, I can choose what I'm gonna do, what I'm gonna focus on ahead of time, and then sort of focus on doing that while I play. And it's also a very beautiful game. I deeply enjoyed it. No Man's Sky? I don't know how that's become. I remember when it first came out, a lot of people were upset about No Man's Sky, but when I played it, I had a great time. Because what I found No Man's Sky to be, instead of what other people found it to be, which was a disappointment, I found it like a meditative experience. I didn't know much about it going in. It was recommended to me from somebody who I was working with at the time, and I think his interpretation was entirely wrong. He told me that he was some gunslinging guy, and he ran into this guy, and they told him to turn his gun over, and he said, "No way." And he pointed his gun at them, and they were impressed, so they gave him a better gun. But then I ran into that same situation, and when you hand your gun over, or you pick whatever option, I don't know what option he picked, but he wasn't impressed by you. He was like, he upgrades guns is what he does. You give him your gun and he gives you your gun back, but stronger or reinforced or something like that. I don't remember the specifics, but it was not what he said, and it was something different in terms of interpretation. I think either he was role-playing in his head, which is fair, or he just misinterpreted the situation, which is also fair. Because one of the things I enjoyed about the game was you have to learn languages one word at a time, and while you're still learning them, you kind of have to piece together what the context of what you're experiencing is. And I don't think he was spending a lot of time. Like, my thing was I wanted to learn the languages because, I mean, I think that's pretty obvious by now what I was describing my interest to be. If part of it is figuring out how to learn what other people are telling me, then I want to know all the words as soon as possible. So I would focus on going around and finding all the little lore bits that would reveal to me the language. I would like pay people to teach me words, and I would go to the monuments and learn words and concepts, things of that nature. And that was how I enjoyed the game. I enjoyed it as going around learning about different cultures and flying through space, and space travel was done really well. And like the only downside was the worlds were kind of like big and empty and samey, which I reckon they probably still are. I don't know. That was the one downside. And I didn't really get the concept of, like, it was so explorative that it seemed at the time. I probably think of it differently now, because now that I think of it, it could be cool to like upgrade your ship as a base. That could be fun. I'm not sure how they do that now. But thinking of it back then, I didn't realize that like your little ship was the base essentially, and you could take your base with you, which is interesting. Because my problem with Minecraft, for example, is it's like this big infinite world, but you kind of find a spot and settle down, and it's hard to get back to your base if you explore too far. So I don't want to dedicate too much to building a base if I plan on exploring, but if I plan on exploring, I kind of want a base of operations. So that came with its own challenges. I find myself at 99% a lot and not knowing what I'm missing, so I'm gonna check. Got the water tank, some tires, tail rotor drive shaft. I'm surprised. Tail rotor drive shaft. What's that? Did I get the underside of that? I did. That I didn't. Oh man. I missed that all over the place. Trying to keep that green on so I can see what I might be missing here. Probably the third dimension, right? I probably got to get up on top of that thing. Okay, okay. Windows? We missed 7 windows? There aren't even 7 windows. Oh, up there. Yeah, I never did go on the front of the plane, I guess. Or the helicopter. Oops, the plane. Forehead. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there. Astroneer would be a good one for adventure. See what other. I want to stay away from rage games. There are some games out there that would be fun to play adventure-y, but like I like the idea of rock climbing games. There was a game called Peaks of Yore that's very rage-inducing after a while. Still very cool in concept, just very rage-inducing. So we'll avoid that. That could have been a fun one. I'm not big on sandboxes because, like I said, Minecraft being the big example, but other ones I don't really care for either. Rust, multiplayer sandboxes, definitely out. Not going to go that route. But we'll go through games that inspire adventure for sure. Probably more cozier games, though I do enjoy like maybe we can get into these would be less less cozy, but we could do Tomb Raider. Tomb Raider games are full of adventure and exploration and climbing and collecting things, and that's kind of up my alley. Okay, buddy. Starting to be real nitpicky about the green on here, I think. Dirt Finder, I need your assistant at the mansion as a matter of the greatest urgency. Alright, Mayor Jeff Jefferson, we'll get right on that. cleaning the helicopter. This is an example of a of a machine level that takes quite a while. A lot of details to get through, but we got there. Flawless again, you're a class act, FA. As it happens, when the TV crews and senators found out we'd only rescued Cal and not the cat, they were a no-show. Still, at least the helicopter will be nice and clean to go back to Columbus. Thanks again. You're welcome here anytime, and if you ever fancy adding an element of danger to your hose work, let me know. I'll put the word in. Alright, Denver Drill, I'll consider it. Well, thank you for joining me, ladies and gentlemen, and until next time, where we will visit the mayor's mansion, I'll catch you later.